In today's video, I'm going to be talking about a couple of the humane societies in the United States.
Questions about what happened to hundreds of small animals the San Diego Humane Society transported to the Humane Society of Southern Arizona.
The more we press, the more strange the story gets, and the rescue community needs answers. What happened to these animals?
I have no idea what they were thinking to do something as absolutely demonic as this.
As some of you may know, I have a big love for guinea pigs. I even have a few myself. So as soon as I found out that a humane society lost over 250 small animals, which included rats, mice, rabbits, hamsters, and guinea pigs, I immediately became invested. So this involves the San Diego Humane Society and the Humane Society of Southern Arizona. Even though these local humane societies share a similar name, they are completely separate entities. They have their own rules, policies, and leaders, and they are not to be confused with the Humane Society of the United States. They are more involved in the adoption and sheltering of animals in their local areas. Even though they might just sound like a couple of local shelters, these are some huge organizations. The San Diego Humane Society, which I will be referring to as SDHS from now on, has 6 campuses across California. One campus is for wildlife rescue, another is their vet hospital, and multiple do small animal, dog, and cat adoptions and sheltering. They also have thousands of volunteers, dozens of employees, and a large board of members. They hold galas that can bring in over $1 million in just one night, and they have also been operating for over 100 years. So they're very reputable and very established. And the Humane Society of Southern Arizona, which I will be referring to as HSSA from now on, is pretty much the same. It's been operating for over 80 years. They have their own vet hospital, a very large team of volunteers and staff members, and they also have their own thrift store to raise funds. But despite the SDHS being a massive organization, they were having issues with their shelters being over capacity in pretty much every kind of animal they accepted.
Our shelters have been over capacity for a few months now, and we're seeing record high numbers of animals in the shelter.
The San Diego Humane Society currently has 2,296 pets in care, and that is a record high.
Been talking about the San Diego Humane Society facing an unprecedented challenge in housing animals who need help, shelters over capacity.
Some small animals in particular had been there for over a year.
And some of these pets have been with us for a very long time, some of them more than a year. So there are some animal caregivers who said goodbye to their best friends this morning.
And while their caregivers may have become attached to some of these small animals, they weren't in a position to foster them or adopt them themselves. And there just wasn't enough interest from the public to adopt these animals either, so the SDHS sought out the help of another humane society. On July 10th, 2003, the board member Jessica reached out to Christian Gonzalez, the Chief Programs Officer at HSSA, requesting assistance. SDHS wanted their help to adopt out some of these small animals. The HSSA agreed to help since they didn't have as many small animals, and they could also work with their local rescue partners to help rehome some of these small animals. And for weeks, the two humane societies worked together and coordinated logistics. Then on August 7th, 318 small animals, which included mice, rats, rabbits, guinea pigs, and hamsters, made the journey from SDHS to the HSSA in Tucson, Arizona. This was the largest animal transport the SDHS had ever done. The back of the truck they were transported in was completely packed to the brim with cages, and each of those cages had a frozen water bottle in it. According to the SDHS, it was also air conditioned in the back of the truck. They also said that fear-free methods were implemented throughout the journey to ensure a calm and safe transport. The majority of the animals had their own names and were finally getting a second chance at being someone's pet.
This is Domino, I believe a little guinea pig over here, and then we've got Magneto over there. And
3 bunnies, Mark, Max, and Manuel, were dumped in a San Diego neighborhood and captured by a couple of sisters and then brought to the SDSH. Manuel was lucky enough to get adopted out, but Mark and Max were 2 of the 318 animals taken to the HSSA for a second chance. Tomo and Ghost were a couple of bonded male guinea pigs who also made the journey to Tucson. Hurley was another male guinea pig who was transferred. He was just 1 year old and already being thrust into a pretty intense situation, but much younger than Hurley were 2 male pinky mice who were transferred with their mother. Jessica, the COO of SDHS, was given the task of driving the animals to Tucson. Small animals weren't her area of expertise, and she didn't actually know that there were even mice on board, but nonetheless, she drove the truck to a parking lot in Tucson. It was there that she met with Christian Gonzalez, who had driven there in an empty transport truck. They then unloaded the animals from the SDHS transport truck and put them in the HSSA one. The HSSA had arranged to get the help of a private-run rescue group to help them rehome these 318 animals. So from that parking lot, Christian drove them directly to that private-run rescue group. Christian was a trusted member of the HSSA and had been working there for almost over 18 years. His employee profile on the HSSA website said that his true passion is to care for and rescue reptiles. He has been involved in the rescue and placement of hundreds of reptiles nationwide. What it didn't mention was that he also has a python breeding business on the side. It is called Pythonidae Empire, and it focuses on quality over quantity. He selectively breeds his pythons to create unique morphs. And if you didn't know, pythons need to eat other animals to survive, and in captivity they are typically fed rodents. But that's neither here nor there. The transport of these 318 small animals was broadcasted all over the news and all over social media by the SDHS. It gave them a chance to bring awareness to the overcapacity issue, and it also told the public that hundreds of animals were soon going to be finding their forever homes.
We have so many deserving pets, more than 1,100 actually, who are available for adoption and sitting here and waiting for their future family.
so special, and obviously you guys will be doing this for a little bit longer, and then they will head to their forever home, their new forever home in southern Arizona.
Since it was so publicized, many members of the public were keeping an eye out on the HSSA's website and social media for adoption notices, but that never happened. There had been absolutely no acknowledgement of these 318 animals on HSSA's end. Just weeks after the transport, concern for these animals started to grow. Animal welfare groups were the first to shine a light on this issue. They contacted the HSSA to check up on these animals, only to find out some of the staff members didn't even know a transport had even taken place.
We have worked with agencies for decades and have never seen anything along these lines, nor has anyone else in animal welfare.
Doherty tells me animal welfare groups in Arizona were the first to shine light on this issue after they called the Humane Society of Southern Arizona checking on the animals, only to learn staff members weren't even aware a large transport had taken place.
Due to growing concern, even SDHS contacted the HSSA to see what was going on. Then 23 days after the transport took place, the HSSA released a statement about it. They confirmed that all of the animals survived the journey and made it to the rescue safely, and that many of the animals had already been adopted into new homes. And according to Steve Farley, the CEO of the HSSA, it was a deliberate decision not to share the transport on social media.
It's a family-funded, family-run shelter. The only condition was they didn't want any publicity on this because people would dump pets at their doors. Just because something didn't happen on the internet doesn't mean it didn't happen. And that's the bottom line.
And for most people, those tidbits of information weren't sufficient enough. The public wanted proof of successful adoptions, and nobody could find any evidence online or in the local community of somebody arranging adoptions of these 318 animals. And with the public demanding answers, the supposed private-run rescue group returned the remaining animals that they hadn't adopted out yet to the HSSA on September 2nd. According to the HSSA, they returned 68 animals. And what that meant was that 250 of the 318 animals had already been adopted out within the span of 3 weeks. That definitely did not ease anyone's concerns. If anything, it made things a lot worse. It was completely unheard of to adopt out that many animals in that span of time, especially by a private-run rescue group. Members of the public and leaders of other rescue groups spoke out about how that amount of adoptions in that span of time was pretty unlikely.
Nobody's buying in the rescue community that this secret private rescue that nobody's ever heard about adopted out over 250 animals in a couple of weeks. I mean, it's not possible.
Hear that a rescue in Arizona has managed to place 250 plus animals in homes in under 3 weeks. I have 2 responses to that. One is, that's unbelievable. Number 2 is, that's unbelievable.
I don't believe it's possible. I don't. I mean, no one believes it's possible.
We would know, and there is no such rescue because currently within just the Phoenix area, there's close to 500 homeless rabbits.
The HSSA itself adopted out 279 animals other than dogs and cats in 2022, 271 in 2021, 172 in 2020, and those numbers are over the span of an entire year. But that private rescue group somehow managed to rehome almost the same amount of animals in 3 weeks that would usually take the HSSA directly 1 year to rehome. Roughly 70 of the rabbits had microchips, and none of their information had been updated, even though they were supposedly adopted. None of the chips had been scanned either, but the HSSA reassured the public that 250 animals were rehomed in 3 weeks. Christian Gonzalez began showing around some photos of kids holding a rabbit and a guinea pig as proof of happy adoptions. That guinea pig's name is Ranch, and he was actually one of the guinea pigs who was returned to the HSSA. So either he was adopted out and then the person who adopted him returned him back to the rescue group because for whatever reason they couldn't keep him any longer, and then subsequently he was sent back to the HSSA, or he was never adopted and that was a staged photo. I'll come back to that. So the 68 animals that the rescue group returned to the HSSA included mice, hamsters, rabbits, and guinea pigs. None of the 24 rats made it back. When they were returned to the HSSA shelter, many of the guinea pigs were kept in wire cages on newspaper. That was far from ideal, but obviously it was a lot better from the situation they came from. Carrie King of the only registered small animal rescue in Tucson called Sweet Hammy Home stepped up to offer her assistance. The CEO allowed her to be involved in their care. While helping, she noticed a lot of guinea pigs had upper respiratory infections, other illnesses, and some had skin issues. Fortunately, she was able to nurse them back to health, but there were some issues that couldn't be undone. The stress of the situation caused the 2 bonded male guinea pigs, Ghost and Tomo, to fight, and then they could no longer be housed together. The specifics of what happened during their fight were detailed in a medical waiver that was given to the person who adopted Ghost. He sustained wounds to his face. The rabbits Mark and Max weren't among the 68 animals returned to the HSSA, and their microchips weren't updated. The 2 male pinky mice who were transferred grew up throughout the whole experience. When they were returned, they were white and grey, and named Zane and Leto. A member of the public who stepped up to help was Dr. Kelly Pelosi. She drove from San Diego to Tucson to rescue 24 of the guinea pigs that were being held at the HSSA.
The only reason that I did it was to make sure that these animals were safe and got what they deserved after all that they had been through.
And one of the guinea pigs she picked up was the guinea pig ranch. When she returned to San Diego, she kept one of the guinea pigs for herself and then gave the remaining 23 guinea pigs to We Companions Small Animal Rescue. The community and other rescue groups stepped up to help as well because they didn't want to leave these animals in the hands of the HSSA. There were 4 rabbits returned and they were all rescued by Brambley Hedge Rabbit Rescue. The 7 mice that were returned were all rescued by Home Sweet Hammy Home Rescue. A number of the guinea pigs were adopted by volunteers, and after Kelly rescued the remaining 24 guinea pigs, all that remained at the HSSA were the 7 hamsters that were returned, and they had to stay there at their vet hospital due to minor eye issues. But when they were fine to be adopted, Home Sweet Hammy Home took them all in. Hurley the guinea pig was one of the 68 animals returned, and just 8 days after returning, he died. When he was given back, he had a head tilt, and records said that there wasn't any food in his cage when he was found dead. He had lost half a pound in the week that he had been at the HSSA, but his cause of death couldn't be determined. While legitimate rescue groups and animal lovers were trying to help all of the animals caught up in this, the 2 humane societies began pointing fingers at each other. The public still wanted proof that the unaccounted for 250 animals had been adopted. The SDHS tried to get that information, but the HSSA were not giving anything. According to Steve, the CEO, the private-run rescue group didn't want to talk to anyone about it.
They're so worried and upset right now, they're not wanting to talk to anybody anymore. They don't want to give any more information. They feel under attack.
Even by the San Diego Humane Society?
Even by San Diego Humane Society.
Gary Weitzman, the president of the SDHS, was confused as to why they wouldn't want to provide that information.
Where our animals went is the easiest question you can ask any organization. That's why it's so perplexing that we're not getting the answers from this one.
And Gary offered that the SDHS collected the returned animals, but Steve denied that he ever offered that.
Weitzman even requested to reclaim all the remaining animals. In an email Friday, Farley told us he received no such request, but Weitzman provided an email proving it.
Steve claimed he told the SDHS about the private-run rescue group in question.
Because we had talked to them and said, this is a rescue, they want us to be kept private, we think we can help you out here. And they knew that from the beginning.
But Gary denied that.
No, we did not know that they were using one partner. We never would have brought the animals to them had we known that, because it's almost impossible to conceive of a successful scenario by just using one partner.
The leaders of these organizations fighting amongst themselves was probably one of the reasons why rescuing these returned animals fell into the hands of volunteers and other rescue groups. Since things were only continuing to escalate between the 2 societies, the SDHS sought out the help of their legal team. They sent a formal request to the HSSA outlining the need for full transparency for what happened to the 318 small animals. In the request, they also asked for full accountability and for the HSSA to stop making baseless accusations like the animals were at risk of euthanasia at SDHS if the HSSA didn't step up to help. The HSSA's legal team responded, which was pretty interesting. They threw the blame back onto the SDHS, saying that it was their sole decision to load the animals into crates, haphazardly stack them in the back of an Enterprise moving truck, and invite the media to televise the event. They said this whole situation is an example of no good deed goes unpunished. One rabbit was actually returned back to the HSSA shortly after the transport took place because it had an eye condition and required medical attention. The lawyer said that it defies logic logic that the rescue had anything but the best intentions if they returned an animal to receive veterinary care. But since the HSSA lawyer wasn't able to shed any light on where the animals went exactly, the SDHS hired a private investigator. Private investigators work hard, but animal advocates work harder, because after weeks of digging through the internet, they finally found where the animals ended up. What they uncovered caused the HSSA to hold an emergency board meeting on September 29th. Both Steve and Christian were suspended. Days later, Steve was fired and they accepted Christian's resignation. The board chair, Robert Garcia, held a press conference to reveal why they came to that decision.
We did so due to their terribly negligent actions against the mission of the Humane Society and their failure to follow protocols, among other reasons.
The SDHS had previously steered away from any sort of speculation that the worst may have happened to these animals.
Now, to be fair, no one is saying anything nefarious has happened. The Humane Society here says, you know, they want to believe the best. They want to believe that these animals ended up in good homes, but with no social media posts, no documentation, they just aren't sure.
But after the animal advocates revealed what they found, they started saying things like this.
Our leading theory, and most people's leading theory, is that these animals ended up as food for reptiles.
And they did have a really good reason to say something like that. It was uncovered that the small animals went to brothers Trevor and Colton Jones. Colton Jones runs a business called The Fertile Turtle, where he sells reptiles as well as live and frozen reptile food. And Colton was not a registered rescue group in any way, shape, or form. He was not a private-run rescue group like the HSSA claimed. He was just a reptile breeder and sold reptile food. Oh, and the live and frozen reptile food they sold were rodents. Colton has since removed his business's Facebook page, but before he did, there were photos of live rabbits as reptile food as well as bags of frozen mice for reptiles. In a statement released by the HSSA, they said that they have had a relationship with the Jones brothers for over a decade. They said that they worked together for 2 separate small animal transfers in the past. According to the HSSA databank, they transferred 8 rabbits to Colton Jones in 2021, which is pretty concerning. The Jones brothers have also volunteered for the HSSA in the past by bringing pet food to the Humane Society, and they have also previously taken on the care of a few exotic rescues like turtles and birds. But in spite of this seemingly good relationship that the Joneses had with the HSSA, things just weren't adding up. It was discovered that the couple of pictures that Christian was showing around as successful adoptions were actually pictures of Colton's nephews holding the animals in Colton's home where he lives with his parents. The rabbit that one of the kids was holding wasn't returned to the HSSA, but as I've already mentioned, the guinea pig was. And since it was just Colton's family members holding these animals, that confirms that they weren't actually ever adopted out to anyone. Those photos were staged. And so far, 3 of the returned guinea pigs have turned out to be pregnant. So at some point when they were in Colton's care, he had mixed the female and the male guinea pigs together. No legitimate rescue would allow rescued animals to breed together. He either let them breed together to create more reptile food, or he let them breed together because it didn't matter since they would soon be snake food. And throughout all of this, not one person who may have adopted one of these animals has come forward to share their adoption experience, when usually a lot of people will share when they have adopted an animal. So it's a red flag that not one person has come forward out of 250 plus adoptions.
People like to be a part of something like that and they love to share it, and to have not one adopter come forward, it just The silence is deafening.
And because of the lack of answers, animal advocates have protested outside of the HSSA, and an interim CEO has been assigned there. After the SDHS did an audit, it was discovered that there were actually 323 small animals transferred, not 318. So the breakdown is that 260 animals are missing. 162 guinea pigs, 72 rabbits, 24 rats, and 2 hamsters, and exactly 63 animals were returned. So the fact that exact numbers weren't released until months after the initial transfer goes to show that there were lots of ways that these small animals were just overlooked. The most recent update that the HSSA has released about this is a screenshot of a text message that Colton sent to someone the day after he received the animals, asking for help to process a large number of guinea pigs and rabbits for reptile food. The HSSA has also conducted an investigation, and they are going to release their findings in December. In the description, I will have a link to a petition, as well as a Facebook group and a Facebook page that are covering the whole situation. If you could please interact and engage with those, that would be amazing. So now I am just going to hold a little digital vigil for the missing animals. Thank you so much for watching and for helping.